Please.
Respected dignitaries in the panel, dear faculty members, and my dear students. Very good morning to one and all. Today is a remarkable day in the era of webinar because today's international webinar entitled Women Empowerment is jointly organized by 3 colleges, namely Adityanar College of Arts and Science, Trichandur, Rani Anna Government College for Women, Tirunelveli, and Arlanandar College, Autonomous, Coimbatore. Though these 3 colleges have different status, but they are established in the vision of uplifting the students, those who are coming from socially and economically backward. Due to this noble vision only, today this coordination would become possible. And another record break is that for today's webinar, nearly 2,000 people are registered all over India and across the country. I wholeheartedly thank all the participants for accepting our invitation. To begin this webinar, first of all, I call upon Dr. Deepa to welcome the gathering.
Good morning, everyone. Today we are gathered here for the webinar on women empowerment. First of all, I welcome our principal, Dr. C.V. Maithili, who always motivated us to conduct such webinars. Welcome you, ma'am. She will join shortly. Now I welcome Dr. D.S. Mahendran, principal of Adityanar College of Arts and Science, who is always motivating us to conduct such webinars. Welcome you, sir. I also welcome Dr. Jayakumar, Secretary of Adityanar College of Arts and Science. I wholeheartedly welcome Father Jayseelan, the Vice Principal of Shift 2 Arlanandar College, Coimbatore, and Assistant Professor, Rural Science Development. Welcome Father Jayseelan, the Vice Principal of Shift 2 Father Godfrey, the Principal of Arlanandar College. Our Chief Guest, Lawyer Monica Vincent, the Policy Advisor of Amnesty International. I also welcome all the faculty members, participants, research scholars, and students who are present here. I also welcome Rohit, who is the technical head behind all these things. I welcome once again all. Welcome you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Now it's my delight to welcome Dr. D.S. Mahendran, the principal of Adityanar College, to deliver the presidential address.
Respected Secretary of Adityanar College of Arts and Science, Dr. distinguished guest of the morning, Lawyer Monica Vincent, and dear Principal of the Rani Anna Government College for Women, Dr. Maithili ma'am, Principal of Arlanandar College, Coimbatore, dear Head of this program, Dr. Deepa, Coordinator of Women Arts College, Rani Anna Government College, Chitra, Head of the Department of Business and Father Jayseelan, Secretary of this program, and participants across the world. Very good morning to all. Great pleasure for me to associate my webinar organized jointly with the 3 colleges, College of Arts and Science, Rani Anna Government College, Arlanandar Arts and Science College, Coimbatore. Really, as pointed by our coordinator, convener, Dr. Chitra, these 3 colleges have established real upliftment of the youth from the very, very rural area. So, Adityanar College is located in a very established in the year 1965 by our familiar people Adityanar. Again, Government Arts and Science College, Rani Anna Government College, that also located in a very rural area. The students are from very, very rural background. I know very well. Regarding Coimbatore, Arlanandar College, Coimbatore, it educated in a very rural area. When I was in Madurai, that village, very, very rural area. So these colleges, they are having a mission to uplift the rural youngsters, especially from the youth empowerment, or just to improve the quality of the students from the rural area. That is the ultimate aim. So we joined it together, organized this webinar on women empowerment. And this webinar is also organized by the women, the coordinator, Dr. Seema, Dr. Antony Chitra, and one of the principal, Dr. Maithili ma'am, our resource person, Monia ma'am. So, really, it's an apt topic, for really they are solving to create awareness. So, generally, empowerment refers to anything spiritual or political or social or individual or the community. Swami Vivekananda quoted that there is no chance for the welfare of the world unless the conditions of the human is improved. Again, our first sister, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, said that when woman moves forward, the family moves, the village moves, and the nation will move. That is the quotes, some of the quotes related to the woman empowerment. Really, when compared to the 1950s, there is slight improvement is there. We have to upset it. If you see the graph, if you see the statistics of the women empowerment states, the graph is slightly increasing in a slowly manner, but it has to be increased in a 45 degree. It should be increased in a 45 degree, then there is a steady improvement is there. But there is no steady improvement. The graph is now at present it is in 25 to 30 degrees. So that means the gradual improvement is there in women empowerment. We are conducting this program to steady improvement. If we see the statistics, 80% of the women are working in unauthorized sector. Very few women are working in the government employees or they are in a decision making position. So there are so many IPS officers are there, so many IAS officers are there, so many parliament people are there. In politics, some people are there. That percentage is very, very less. But it is increasing. Again, there are so many people in defense. So again, it is gender sensitization is there. They have proved that the women have proved, established that they can do. They are far with the men. So we have to accept as a man, we have to accept it. We have to accept it and give way to the women to proceed further. Hope that this webinar will create an awareness among the women to give way for the youth, women, especially women, and motivate the women for the women empowerment. I wish the webinar grand success. Once again, I wish all the organizers for taking their best efforts to organize this very good program for the welfare of the women. Stay home, stay home. Thank you.
Sir, thank you very much, sir, for nice words and for presidential address. Now, I would like to welcome Dr. S. Kumar, the Secretary of Intersectional Lens, to give the presentation.
Respected three principals, Dr. Mahendran of Ayutthaya College of Arts and Sciences, Dr. Maithili of Rani Anna Government College, Puri, and foreign Dr. Godwin Rufus of Untitled College, Karmatu, Honorable Resource Person, Lawyer Monica Vincent, Policy Advisor, Amnesty International, Dr. Antony Sahaya Sitra, Head of the Department of BBA of Ayutthaya College, and the convener of this program, Dr. Diba, NAC Coordinator of Rani Anna College, and the coordinator of this webinar. Father Jaiseelan, Assistant Professor of Arananda College and the Organizing Secretary of this program. Dr. Karthikeyan, Assistant Professor of BBA, and other faculty members of these three esteemed institutions. And my dear participants, teaching faculty, research scholars, and student participants, good morning to all of you. I feel immense pleasure for being a part of this wonderful program at this pleasant morning. This international webinar is a remarkable one that three colleges, our Aitana College, Raniana College, and Arladar College, combined together and conducting this fantastic program on women empowerment. I feel very happy to say that Dr. Sahai Sitra has been dedicating herself a lot for conducting such online programs during this pandemic period. The topic chosen for discussion in today's webinar is about the empowerment of women. From the Vedic period to modern age, the condition of women in our society is somewhat critical and pitiable. They suffer a lot under the patriarchal dominance, that is, they are dominated and exploited by the men folk. They are always forced to live under the control of men, such as their father at first, husband, and next, and the son at last. They are not allowed to think or act according to their own. They are treated as sophisticated slaves in their own homes till now. It is said that the main duty or the responsibility of a woman is that she has to fulfill or satisfy the wants and needs of their family members in order to liberate themselves from the clutches of men and man-made standards, and also to get equal rights as that of men. Many women activities have been engaging themselves in many rebellious and reformative activities. Women empowerment is a need of the hour, and they should be treated properly and respectably. Empowering women is a process of increasing women's access to control over the strategic life choices that affect them and access to the chances that allow them fully to realize their capacities. It helps to improve women's equality of life in all economic, political, social, and cultural spheres. If women are liberated and empowered, then they will become agents of change in all fields. In this modern era, women had empowered themselves a lot, but not fully. They have miles to go to reach their destination. I appreciate the organizing committee members from the three colleges for choosing this excellent topic for discussion in this program, and also for their fervent efforts in arranging this webinar. Once again, I extend my warm welcome to the resource person and all the participants from various institutions and wish the webinar a grand success. Stay home, stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your felicitation. Now I invite Reverend Father Godwin Rufus for felicitation. Father Godwin Rufus, Principal, Arulanandar College, Karmathur.
Yes.
Good morning, Father.
Beloved professors, beloved students, and netizens, I wish you all a very grand and spectacular day. The moment I say Kekda, am I audible? Am I audible? Hello?
Yes,
Yes,
Father.
Father.
Hello?
Yes, Father. Continue, Father.
Next, Mr. Vincent. Thank you so much, Father. Father could not connect due to network problem. Now I request Dr. Chitra to introduce the chief guest of today's session, Lawyer Monica Vincent.
I have an immense pleasure to introduce today's resource person, Lawyer Monica Vincent. Monica Vincent is a policy advisor in Amnesty International. She is a lawyer and the founder of Vincent Law Firm, Chennai, India, which provides professional legal advice to the public, private sectors and governments and its agencies. Previously, she served as senior consultant in the Ministry of Law and Justice in India and as human rights officer in the Commonwealth Secretariat in London. She worked at the International Criminal Court in The Hague, Netherlands, as well as with Amnesty International India and the Human Rights Law Network in New Delhi. She has also served as an honorary commissioner on the Commission of Churches on International Affairs of the World Council of Churches, Geneva, Switzerland. She served as the reporter for the prestigious Madras Law Journal and also served as a panel advocate in High Court Free Legal Services Committee, taking up pro bono cases of poor and the marginalized communities. She was a guest lecturer at Laila College, Chennai, where she taught module on the rights of women and children. She graduated in international law from Oxford Brookes University in the UK. She has 2 research publications to her name and has written op-eds in national newspapers on law and public policy. So today in our midst, we have an eminent and resourceful personality as a resource person, Lawyer Monica Vincent. So on behalf of all, I welcome you, ma'am, to take up the session.
I was trying to unmute the mic. Thank you very much, especially Eva Chitra and Father Jayasilian particularly. And it's also Mr. Mahendran sir, Mr. Jayakumar sir, and also, of course, Maithili madam is unable to join, and Father Rufus for your leadership in enabling your team to organize this particular webinar. And I also am actively looking at the chat box on the side, and I also would like to recognize a lot of students and professors and people who are interested in this subject. Those were very profound words, Mr. Mahendran sir and Mr. Jayakumar sir, and what you talked about. Unfortunately, we couldn't hear what Father Rufus was saying, but profound words on what women empowerment means and how much we have progressed so far, and how much to go. I think that was absolutely profound, and you did set the tone for my talk today. Thank you for that. Friends, I would be using some PowerPoint presentation, so I might be switching between, switching it on and off. So bear with me, and I think I will also go a bit slow because of the technology and all of that involved. So if I was told at the instance that this is going to be a webinar catering to academic institutions and academicians and students and lecturers. So I have prepared my presentation to suit to the audience. So if there are lawyers in this particular presentation, if you're looking to hear from me as a lawyer in terms of the constitutional guarantees to the legality as in the acts and also, of course, case laws, then perhaps this is not your presentation for today. We can have it at another session, perhaps. So this is not for lawyers and law students, if I may clarify that at the outset. But what I would do most definitely is to speak to concepts, and I would also speak to issues, and I will also speak to the way forward as how we in our individual spaces and together as a community could move forward on women's empowerment. So some of you might be wondering, it's just why this topic on women empowerment? This topic has been sort of overused and addressed in so many times before. I'm sure this is not the first time you're hearing somebody speaking to you on women empowerment. So there's so much which has been said, and so much which has been debated, and so much of progress, and also some reservations also in with regards to women empowerment. So for me, the first question to you, remember this is going to be an interactive session, so don't assume that I'm going to do all the talking and you're going to keep listening to me. So the first interactive question that I have for each of you, and I would encourage, because I'm actively looking at the chat box here, please type in one word what women empowerment means to you. So I'm going to take a couple of seconds to maybe a minute. Please go on. There is no judging here. Just please type in one word what women empowerment means to you. So I'm going to wait for your response and then move into my session. Yeah, so I'm going to wait and keep looking at the chat box. Please help me to make this presentation successful. Thank you. Yes, of course. Yes, don't take notes. Thanks for that, Manigandan. Please do not take notes of what I'm saying. The PowerPoint presentation will be circulated to you through the resource organize this. So don't worry about the PowerPoint presentation, and don't take notes. Put your pens down. Just go with me in this journey. Now, first question, please type what women empowerment means to you. I'm going to pause here. Yeah, I'm going to go on mute and look at the chat box for a minute. This is fantastic. You know what? I could have had multiple presenters with me. This is amazing. This is amazing landscape of issues that you're highlighting. So keep them coming, because we will be referring back to it, or at least you will be referring back to it yourselves at the end of the presentation, and then asking your questions as to what women self-respect. I love that. So I think it's brilliant. So I'm going to start sharing a slide, and where I will speak to you on what women empowerment is. Hold on a second. Let's see where this goes. Okay, women empowerment. Okay. Okay, I hope you're able to see this slide. Okay, so this is the question I was talking to you about. What does women empowerment mean to you? And I wanted to bring to your attention this particular imagery, where we do know that women are actually now, as we speak, at the line of the racing line. But what we actually do find, despite the progression women have made, actually, what we do find is that the progression is not translating into reality in full spectrum of rights, in full spectrum of entitlements, in their opportunities, and also in their resources, and of course, in their own lives. So there are definitely some hurdles that we will have to recognize with respect to women empowerment. And if you ask me what a definition would look like for women empowerment, then this I would like to refer you to. So this is one takeaway slide, which means like whatever at the end of the conversation, if you want to remember, just remember the takeaways that I tell you. So the women empowerment, actually the core of women
Monica,
empowerment.
sorry for disturbing.
Yeah.
Monica,
Yeah, tell
your
me,
PPT
yeah.
is not PPT is not visible.
Not visible. Okay, hold on. Share screen, double click. Is it visible now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So one takeaway that I want to keep with you, remember this at the end of the presentation, and this is a big message that I want to give away. Of course, there'll be others as well. The core of women empowerment lies in the ability of women to control their own destiny and freedom to make life choices. Thank you, colleagues. You did mention this in so many words. What it actually transpires, I'm going to stop sharing this slide, come out and then speak to you for a second, and then we just switch and go that. So what does it actually mean to control your destiny, and what it means to have a freedom to make your life choices? So I see quite a few participants, and I mean here across India. Just answer with me, or just sort of walk with me when I ask you these questions. So if I ask you, were you able to make a strategic choice, make your own life choice with respect to the education that you're doing right now? Was that your choice that you wanted to study this particular degree in this particular college? Were you actually able to make a strategic choice when it comes to the decision when you move on to be an employed in an organization? Is that a strategic choice? Were you able to make that choice freely without any compulsion? And if you're not happy with that employment, are you able to move out of that employment? And if you're married, or if you're looking to marry, is that a choice that you're making out of your free will? And if you're thinking about parenthood, is that a strategic choice that you can choose when you want your baby? How many babies do you want, if you're a woman, of course? And if you don't want to have a child in your life, even if you're married, is that a strategic choice and a freedom of will that you actually have in your own right and remit to make that decision? And also the strategic choice in your families. Do you have access to property? Like, meaning, do you have properties in your name, in your parental home, or in your spouse's home? Do you decide when you're on your salary, on your financial independence, when it comes to whether which stocks or shares, or which mutual funds, or which insurance policy you're looking to take for, in your financial decisions? I mean, these are important questions, because not always the choices and the freedom and the liberty and of course, there's a wonderful thing on self-respect as well. When we talk to it, is not always our choices, and it has been controlled, it's been doctored, it's been like sort of influenced by somebody else except us. So I think there is a valid reason for us more than ever to keep revisiting women's empowerment, and women's empowerment for all the right reasons. So if somebody tells me, Monica, thank you very much for the first 5 minutes, I have got, I can create my own destiny, I actually have the freedom to make my own life choices, then actually this presentation is not for you. You should leave this session. Yeah. If it is somebody else that you're thinking, okay, I need to learn more and I need to request, then it is up to you. Okay, what is the next slide that I'm going to try share? So sorry about this technical thing, but I need to show you something. So let's try again. Okay, if you're not able to see this, then shout out so then I can tell you. So, okay, unfortunately we have to go this. Okay, look at the women here. So we're talking about women empowerment today. What does this imagery show to you? I mean, okay, they're all wonderful looking women. That's great. But actually the women that we are speaking about here, it's actually not the same women. Actually, it's not the women these are very different looking women. They are very diverse, like they're very diverse. So what am I trying to say, tell to you by showing that image is that the women that we're talking about today, when we say women empowerment, please bear in mind the concept one that I will introduce to you. If you know it, well and good. If not, journey with me. It is about intersectionality. It could be an academic scientific research that you're doing. It could be a project that your institution is rolling out. It could be a policy paradigm. It could be anything at the national, even local, national, global level. One will have to look into the intersectionality issues. So what do I mean by intersectionality? I have some wonderful women on the chat box. I have some wonderful women who invited me to this. And there's a wonderful women leadership that we see. We're all women, we agree. Of course, we have men here too, but this applies to men as well. But in the context, I'm referring to women. Are we all the same women? Like, do we all, of course, we're women. But what is the intersectionality that applies to us? So bear in mind when I say this, we can be women, we may be having the same, benchmark as to the women empowerment, we might be agreeing on it. But as the speakers prior to me talked about, there are women who could be from the rural sector to urban sector. They could be women in different age criteria. They could be women who actually belong to different caste identities. And me, I'm a Christian. I have a religious background, but in the religion, again, I will be like seen as whether I'm a Catholic or a Protestant. And then there could be a class in identity wherein I could come from a middle class or a lower class or in terms of economically grading me. They could be in terms of sexuality. One could be an LGBTI person. Another could be an able or a disabled person. So when we are looking at women empowerment, bear in mind, colleagues, that we will have to be definitely conscious of the fact that who are we talking about when we talk about women empowerment? I think we cannot have this broad brush, abstract idea, oh, we're doing women empowerment today. So we're going to talk about all women. Mind you, all women are not the same. So we need to be absolutely cautious about what we mean by women empowerment and how we have to integrate intersectional lens. So now, definition takeaway 2. So one thing, if you want to take away, the second thing from the session, I'm trying to share this again. I hate to do this back and forth, but this is useful. So let's go here. Okay. Big, make it big. I don't know why this keeps going to the first slide. Okay, here we are. So this is the intersectional lens. There are so many lenses that one can have. But when you actually see the intersectional lens, when it cuts into power, privilege, and identity, then it actually gives an entirely different result. So the takeaway slide number 2, women, it also applies to men, boys and girls, anybody with an identity, are not a homogeneous group. That's very important to know. Intersection of power, privilege, resources, identity leads to structural inequalities and discrimination. I think that's a nice segue to take you into what do I mean by structural inequalities and discrimination. Let's quickly go. So I'm going to talk about systemic issues here. So when I mean structural inequalities and discrimination, there's actually 2 ways of looking at it. There are systemic issues and there are operational issues. So when we look at the systemic issues, I want you to look at this slide for me for a second or 2 to see how the society, in terms of our socialization process, talks to people's beliefs, values, and attitudes about women. So what it actually means, just take maybe a couple of seconds here. So how do we identify women that we speak about? We say women are actually absolutely caring and nurturing. We say women can be great cooks. My mom, my mother-in-law, they all do wonderful food. We talk about women as emotional people who can be pretty, soft. We also sometimes on the negative tones, or we talk about women who actually gossip a lot, who talk a lot, who such a chatterbox. We also talk about women in terms of the materialistic desires and possessions to, your jewelries or your clothes. And, so these are the different gender stereotypes that has been over the years inbuilt in us about when we talk about women. I'm going to sidestep and I'm going to stop sharing, come out. Oh God, I'm doing this back and forth. Oh yeah, back again. So those are the gender stereotypes. We know that. And so I need to tell you a little thing about my boy. I have a girl and a boy. The boy is 5. So I was chatting with my boss the other day on my WhatsApp. And he comes to me and he tells me, Mama, what you doing? And I say, I'm actually having a conversation with my boss. And he peeks into the phone and he says, he looks at the DP image and he says, your boss is a girl? And that's the 5-year-old. Your boss is a girl? I'm like, well, yeah, my boss is a girl. Like, that can't be right. It has to be a boy. So that's the 5-year-old. I'm doing women empowerment session with you, but that's my 5-year-old at home. So I'm like, goodness gracious. So where did you get this idea? This boss has to be the male and the boss is not the female. So it's fascinating to see even how as young children, when we tell them, oh, the pink, go to the girl, oh, the blue, go to the boy, oh, it's the boss, or whatever dynamics that we play, it's like we're sort of dividing them into stereotypes, giving them the gender roles. You play with the transformer, my son. Oh, you keep the Barbie, my girl, sort of the gender dimensions in toys, in terms of our books, and that's the next thing I wanted to do in the slide, but I wanted to also show this to you. If you don't have this book, I'm sure I can show you a number of books, but this is my most fascinating read ever. This I would recommend if you don't have it. It's in the slide, don't take notes. Never Marry a Woman with Big Feet by Mineke. Okay, this is a fascinating book. And this is about proverbs from across the globe. It's really chunky. It's really chunky read. So I got this and I was like thinking, okay, what is proverbs? We know about proverbs and everything. This book talks about women. About women, how women are portrayed in different cultures across the globe. Put it that way, okay? And it was fascinating for me when I first saw this. If you look at the body parts of women, they actually have female body parts from head to toe, even as detailed as from your eyes, your nose, your mouth, your lips, and even as intricate as your vagina to your buttocks, to the whole lot of your hands, your fingers. Everything is so descriptive, meaning how women are described and how women are portrayed in different cultures. And it also goes on to talk about your love life, your divorce, your widowhood. And if they talk about widowhood, they even ask, have you got married after your widowhood? There are proverbs to speak to that. And also it goes on to speak about, are you a wife, your daughter-in-law, are you a mother-in-law? And when they say mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, they pitch you also against each other. They say, oh, what about mother-in-law and daughter-in-law combination proverbs? And for me, the most fascinating in this book, I want to read it to you today, is actually where in one chapter, one particular section, it talks about do not praise and do not trust, and not to be seen and not to be heard. So this is like one chapter where women are being told, don't praise and don't even trust them. And you in your own languages, I'm sure I wanted to do this in Tamil because it would be more effective, but I see a lot of you from other states as well. And I'm sure you will have enough proverbs in your own languages to think through. So this is about do not praise and do not trust. This is a Bengali one. So it goes on to say, do not believe in the roots of yam, muddied water, and women's words. This is a Bengali one. And look at this one. This is a Russian one. Do not praise your wife before 7 years, okay? 7 years, no praising. And the English one, okay, never praise your wife until you're being married 10 years, okay? 10 years, please do not even think about it. And there is a Burmese one which says, if you love your wife, actually if you do, praise her only after she's died and gone, okay? Even before that, don't even do it. And when it comes to trust, I will read you just maybe 3. In the English one says, there is no trusting a woman or a tap. You know what tap? So don't trust both. And a Thai one says, an elephant, a cobra, an old slave, a loving wife. Put no trust in them, guys. Just ruled out. That's a Thai one. And a Sanskrit one says, one should trust neither court officers nor women. This is a fascinating read just to reinforce on how gender stereotypes, gender roles, and how women are perceived in wherever we are. So this is very interesting because even if you look in our language and literature, this is a literature, right? In language and our literature, in our films, we know this, we can do this introspection. We've done this prior. And even in media, your online media, offline media, your print media, your advertisements, whatnot, everywhere. And even in your memes, the social media memes that's coming up, it's like what is the social media? I love watching and enjoy watching the social media memes, but then sometimes I'm thinking it's just strikingly on your face. And I need to do a little bit of a sidestep, and this is a perception that I want to talk about. So when I had this little boy, the second child, so I went in to do gym classes. So there was this personal trainer, and he was telling me, Monica, you need a bit of a fire, like when you're doing your kickboxing and stuff. So maybe from tomorrow, you bring the picture of your mother-in-law and you put it against, like close to this puncher, so that when you will get that enough fire in you to do the kickboxing. And I'm like, what? Why would I want to bring the picture of my mother-in-law so that I will have a fire in me? And look at the perception that people have. But this is how women have been portrayed or pitched against each other to say, okay, this is how it is and that's how it has to be done. So bear in mind, this is all planted. And this is all planted for various reasons. And this is quite systemic. Take that word, systemic. And of course, there are operational issues. We'll come to it in a second. But these are systemic issues ingrained in you. These are perceptions. These are attitudes. These are values. And these are systemic in you. And that is being reinforced by so many other things. I'm going to go back to the slide because I need to show you one more thing. Double click. Yeah, minimize this. Oh, God. Yeah, I did this. Okay, cool. Make it bigger. Oh, God, this keeps doing all the time. Okay, now this image. I wanted to show this image and wanted to talk to you about gender roles. We know gender roles. If I should show this to my son, the first question he will ask me is why this man is wearing a pink shirt? And why is he even scrubbing the plates up? Cooking, cleaning, washing, ironing, and doing the household, it's not his business. And my daughter would be like thinking, oh wow, this girl can be a painter, an artist, a statistician, could doing a technical job, could be do a professional career. This is fascinating how the gender roles are also divided. In COVID, if I should refer to you, because I see most of you are researchers in this call and you're academicians, the statistics clearly says that female researchers published less during COVID. So if you have any papers coming out and if you're by a woman, you're very minuscule population. And also COVID and in situations as in any pandemic, it could be actually not necessarily the COVID-19, but also inclusive of COVID-19. What we actually find is that papers published, research papers particularly published about any natural disaster or a pandemic as in COVID has got very little reference to the issues faced by women. So women issues are not portrayed. And also this we know, and this is actually could be relevant and relevant to most of us here in terms of the unequal and unpaid housework. So before coming to this call this morning, I know most of you did this along with me. I had to do the vegetable chopping. I have to make sure the children are fed. I had to make sure their Zoom classes are completed. I had to make sure everything is done. So as soon as I finish off this presentation, I can go feed them and jump onto my work. So this is something sort of the unequal and unpaid housework, which has been absolutely crushing for the women. And this is all the formal sector and people who are employed that I'm talking about. If you look at the informal economy, about 740 million women are engaged in it, and their resources fell by 60%. So those are staggering numbers. And that again reinforces the fact that women bear the brunt at the home as well as at work front. Now, for the purposes of our session, I will be focusing only on the red today, which means what are the challenges in women empowerment we have in Asia. Of course, it's got a reference to India as well, but I will be focusing only on education and violence, not on anything else, because the rest would take a whole session in itself. But one other thing that I really wanted to pay, talk this light is actually the employment or the gender pay gap. In India, what we actually know that the women earn, sort of the 2019 statistics, less than a man. We actually don't talk about our wages, do we? We don't say what is my pay scale, what is my grading, what bandwidth I am. I mean, we really don't talk about it. And when we actually go to the skilled sector, like ours, what we are from, this pay gap is actually 20%. And if we go to the very high skilled sectors, the pay gap is increasing actually. It's not even decreasing, it's 30%. So it is important for us, even in our formal institutions where we don't disclose the pay scales, But this is not just applicable only to our institutions, but also applicable to anything, even your films, your sports industry, various other industries also. This is sort of a very common phenomena which applies in terms of to be addressed. The takeaway 3 actually is, but then half of them are not even represented and not even made visible because of the challenges in the to education and to your policy. I would really want to talk to you about the education of women and girls. And because they're doing, I'm going to stop sharing and then come back to me again. Yeah, education of women and girls, because we are educationalists. If we look at young people, right? Young people who are actually in school. Oh yeah, I'm back again. Poverty, so they don't have enough money to send children to school. Protection issues, because they find children, girls especially, they could be abused, or there could be some protection issues related to them. So people, parents, families don't prefer children to go to school. The children drop out and they get married off. Child marriages, of course, in South Asia, it's a major issue in South Asia because child marriages is sort of a growing and it's a relevant issue. And also because of the violence in the families, right? So this is something common. So in our colleges, when we just, sort of transcend and come to our colleges, what happens? How many of you, so I went to Oxford to do my master's in law, and when I saw the STEM education, your science, technology, and whatnot, there were very few women who actually who came to do a STEM. It was largely men. So you can just take a deep analysis and think and talk to yourself, how many of the women and girls are actually going to do master's degree in an overseas education? Does the family want to do that? I wanted to do this piece in Tamil, but I'm not going to do this because of lots of other of you. But just imagine, in your advertisements, I've seen so many advertisements which speaks to, oh boys, please save that money. That's for your son's education and your daughter's marriage. Like all those lines when they do that in the marriages, they say, oh, daughters, marry them off. Immediately send them to school, get them to get the one degree done, marry them off. Say no, send them off to somebody else's property because they belong to some of this other's family. It's not our family anymore. It's all done with. So don't even think about sending them to a master's degree level education overseas or even master's degree in India. It doesn't even warrant. Just forget about it. So what's the attitude that we have in our societies when we come to women's education? What does women's education mean? So in Sri Lanka, we were doing a research, a COVID-related research on education. And we were talking to some of those, NGO groups and finding out, so, okay, children are out of school because of COVID. So what are you trying to do? And they were talking about pedagogy. What does education mean? So they said, we go to the communities, to the most marginalized communities who can't be on Zoom classes, who can't sign in and do what we're doing right now today, having a gadget to do that. So they go to communities and they don't say, come everybody, class time, everybody. Sit down. It's about, washing your hands, cleaning your hands, talk to the parents. Parents are watching TV in the next room and they are very depressed because they cannot go to work. The men in the family are drunk. They just, facilitate a process where they're also engaging with the parents and then coming down to the children, because children are not in isolation. I remember when I was an advocate in Chennai, because I don't do that now, I'm with Amnesty. So we were like talking about, okay, so on giving value system to schools and training, especially, teachers in schools. So one of the things that we talk to teachers to find out, so if a child comes to your class or if your classrooms and colleges, if somebody is too overly sleepy, or somebody is not even having a concentration, how would you engage with the child? It was fascinating exercise with the teachers. Would you rebuke the child and say, you just dumb useless, you're a big dumbo that I've ever seen in my life, you can never study, I don't even know why you sit in my class? Is that the approach you would take? Or would you try to understand if the child had no electricity the previous night, therefore a lot of mosquito bites? Or maybe the child comes from a broken family. There was a lot of hangama happening at the home last night. Or if there was a child who was actually watching, playing video games or watching TV late in the night. Or maybe the child skipped breakfast because they didn't have money to do breakfast this morning. And therefore the child is exhausted. So I think it's a child-friendly environment, when you talk of education. It's absolutely crucial. So education is not education per se, but education is a sort of a holistic set structure which speak to so many things. And on that note, if I can beautifully segue into educational institutions as in colleges. So what is the role of colleges when we talk about education? So is your college, this is a question for you to take home. Is your college looking into gender responsive education? So what do I mean by gender responsive education? Are you talking about self-management? Are you talking about critical thinking? Are you talking about financials? Like financial decisions when you're actually speaking to students? Are you talking about violence? If there's an issue of violence and harassment, how should the women and the men in the college? It's not just about women, mind you, because it benefits both men and women. So is the college giving you an opportunity to learn on those aspects? And that would be absolutely crucial. And also, is your college in their languages, in their annual reports, in their publications, speaking, or even in their own syllabuses, speaking against gender stereotypes that we just saw in previous slides? We're not going to do that. We're not going to follow on gender stereotypes. And one important case that I remember when I was practicing, this was about a young mother, okay? She got married off. Fine. She just decided to choose to live with this boy. She got married and she went back to college as a married woman. And so she was studying and all of that. And at the time of exams, the school management refused. It's actually a particular lecturer refused to give the admit card for the exam. So she is like, please, can I have the admit card because I need to go sit in the exams. But the admit card was not issued. So of course it became a legal case. It went to police. It didn't work. It came as a legal case. So we were like said, what is the problem in not issuing? Was it attendance a problem? No, attendance was not even a problem. Okay, fine. Did the child didn't make the payment, not the child, this girl, make the fees payment? So that was not an issue either. So what is the issue in withholding this admit card and depriving the child, this girl, to not take the exams? And the judge was like, what, Monica, what is this? Call the management, call the manager. The principal got drawn in, and the lecturer who was the HOD of the department got drawn in. And apparently it turned out to be something that there was a moral policing happening, that the management and especially the HOD didn't want that her example of marrying, marrying out during the time period whilst in college was a brilliant idea. And therefore they were withholding the pass to write the exam. So the judge was fuming, and then it was this unnecessary moral policing happening. And depriving a person on the right to education. And also it's somebody else is marrying somebody else. It's their remit. It's the institution has got no say on that. So legally it didn't even stand the ground. It was a big hangama around it. So I think it is important for us when we talk about education, we need to talk about the holistic education, and we need to see how we are addressing those issues. And do we have trainings for our teachers and personal development? All this is well and good. Do we have budget in place? So we will have dedicated training materials for the personal development of teachers, and therefore they will be equipped to actually roll out these policy measures and roll out these trainings and roll out these perception alternatives. So that is absolutely crucial. I need to go back to my slides because I'm going to the next and the most important one for this session, which will be applicable. I've got to minimize this. Okay, good. Click open, and it's going to go back to the first slide again. I'm so sorry, this is annoying. Okay, global pandemic. So we're talking about global pandemic now. We're talking about COVID-19, but actually the global pandemic is the violence against women. So if we actually see, what do I mean about violence against women, it is important to see this slide to see what do we mean by violence against women. This image, take it with me, keep it safe with you, because the violence can be physical, the violence can be sexual, and the violence can be psychological. So I think it can happen also in public places and in private places, and both actually. So this violence is a major issue and is a major impediment for women's empowerment. And with this, I'll stop this slide sharing and I will speak to it. Speak. So 1 in 3 women, that's the statistics, 1 in 3 women in her lifetime would have experienced physical, sexual or psychological violence. And it could be actually sometimes combination of both also. So I can say I myself in my own life have experienced one of the three violence. This is serious business. I think we need to get into some serious issues right now. So violence has this issue, violence against women and girls is such a rampant issue, and this has been rocking nations to legal systems, to international machinery, and we just can't get over it. It only is manifesting in different nuanced forms. Like now we have online violence happening. I'll speak to that in a minute, but of course, not just even the visible violence, but even online violence is happening. So if you ask me the question, so Monica, what's this about this violence? Why women are invariably and largely made targets? Because men can also be subject to this violence, mind you. So this is not something like written off for women, but in terms of degree, in terms of numbers, women are largely affected, the victims. So this is sort of a very this is an issue you just can't overlook and underplay it. Okay, let's put it there. So why women are largely subject to violence issues is again back to your socialization process and how women are perceived in society. I think it's absolutely crucial to go back to our homes right now. Take a second, forget about this environment that we're talking about, go back to your homes. Go back to your homes and ask yourself how it plays out between the relationship in your family with your parents, if you're not married, or if you're married, then if you have a spouse, how the relationship status quo is there, how is the power and the power relationships and dynamics operate, how are you treated in your family, how are you respected in your family, and what is the structural imbalance that you actually have in the family. And all these are absolutely crucial steps when it comes to violence. And there are some big don't do this when actually violence happens. This can happen in workplace, this can happen at home. Violence is anywhere, okay? It can happen in public places also. The first biggest don't do that I want to give away is do not encourage this. Do not encourage these jokes. I used to, prior when I was a lawyer, I used to be doing these trainings with IT companies and also in garment industry sector, Coimbatore Road Belt with the government of Tamil Nadu, because the violence was quite rapid in those industries, especially, of course, other industries as well. But we used to be doing them when we say, do not encourage somebody, singing a vulgar song, or sending you a text message, or even making a joke in a passing remark. I mean, this should not be encouraged by not just the women in concern, but everybody around it. So we check on each other. This was as simple. I was reading a message the other day where a husband was filming a wife actually taking dumbbells, the weights and stuff. And they just to say how her posture and everything. So a man who was actually in the gym scenario came to the girl and said, this man is taking a video of you doing your workout. Is that okay with you? I don't know who he is. Then she said, yeah, he's my husband and he's doing it because I've asked him to do it. Then he said, okay, are you sure you're okay with this? Despite the fact that he's your husband and everything. So it is important to be socially conscious and alert. And you don't appreciate, or when such incidents happen, when it comes to even in our work environment, even in our home environment, we do not appreciate and welcome those gestures. It is very important. And that takes to the second point about don't normalize this, because people tend to normalize violence. People tend to normalize violence. For example, if an incident happens, it's okay, yeah, it's just, it happens out everywhere in the world. Chalo, we just have to move on with the fact, and we have to, keep focused with our agendas in life. We just can't be, sort of giving attention to this or dismissing it. That's the word. Dismissing it, belittling it, and say, just brush it under the carpet and focus. That's important. I mean, that's really another big no, because that is not going to solve the problem either. And the third thing I want to speak to you about is victim blaming. I know that Monica the other day, she came on this webinar and she was wearing that black t-shirt, and therefore, she was subjected to the victim, to the abuse or whatever. We just blame people for whatever, the dress they wore or the accessory or the way she was, using her hand gestures or drinking a teacup. It can be anything. I mean, this is ridiculous. You blame a victim and then you don't even give them the opportunity to even speak out and say, okay, no, this is horribly wrong. This cannot be true. I mean, you cannot tolerate it. Imagine I'm doing this. This is my office. I'm doing this here in my parents' home. Imagine a thief goes upstairs right now. Okay, takes away all my jewelry, my precious stones. And then it's my parents and my children are at home right now, and they fatally injure my parents and my children. Okay, and they are admitted in the ICU. Imagine that scene right now. So I finish and I go out. My next house neighbor or the police, they say, Monica, what's the big deal about this? Let's compromise. And they eventually catch the guy who's done it or the girl who's done it. If they then do they say, talk to me and say, it's okay. It's just a little bit of, a theft, a burglary, and then a little bit of fatal, injury. It doesn't matter. It is not a grave offense, you see. Let's compromise on this. Will that be the attitude? Tell me, will that be the attitude? Because those are crimes, those are offenses. There is no bloody compromise. Sorry about the language, beep. There is no compromise. If that is the case, how could you compromise and say it's okay, it was just an abuse, it was just a touch, it was just this language, or maybe it was just a rape, it was not intentional, oh, it's just a gang rape, but that didn't kill you, you're fine, you're alive. So you can just go about with your business, So let's just compromise. Or even better, get married to the same people, who raped you. That's even wise thinking. Will that be? Is that suitable? Is that even logic in any sense? I think it's important to ask these questions because violence is brutal. Violence, anything against autonomy of my body, it's a crime against humanity. It's a crime against the society. There is no compromise involved there. It cannot be done that way. So there was this one instance, I want to break here for an example, to say there was this one instance where this girl was in this IT company, okay? And her marriage was in 1 week's time. And okay, she's great. She's still going to finish off handovers with the job because she didn't want to work after the job, the marriage. And the last, she receives a parcel, a post. And then she looks at it and then she sees images about her, I'm getting distracted about this chat box also. Anyway, so sorry. Nude images about this girl in the envelope. And she's like, oh my dear God, what is this? And she didn't know what to do. So immediately she goes to the HR and sensible thinking there. She didn't hide it under. So she just makes a complaint with the HR. And the HR knows the fact that this girl is leaving the organization. This is an IT company. I'm not going to name this. This is a very important case, actually. She's leaving the organization. So the HR then immediately relayed it to the vice president. And this is fascinating. I'll come back to leadership on this particular point. So the vice president, what did he do? He didn't say, oops, I've come back again. There was a bit of a hitch. So leaving the organization, so we're not going to take action. He didn't do that. So he immediately lodged a police complaint in consent of this particular girl, and they found out the culprit, the person who actually did that particular morphing of images. So what's the little background story? The person who morphed the images, where they were both classmates, they were not in any affair or no relationship whatsoever. He just was so envious about this girl getting married, and he just had a liking towards her, simple as that. Nothing against, nothing beyond that. But then he was working out of Bangalore office, came down to Chennai, posted the images from a local post office, went back to Bangalore office, assuming and thinking, I'm not going to get caught. I'm sitting out of Bangalore. I've got nothing to do with this. So what did the management do? So this management, they didn't say, oh, so you did the postage and everything. Anyway, she's leaving the organization. She's, in a week's time. But you ended up doing all this, nasty and business, which is liable for an offense. So they say they didn't do. Transfer this guy to Pune office. Okay, problem solved. You continue with your work, and madam, here's your, like a package. You can leave. They didn't do that. So the vice president, excuse me, he actually took it upon himself to say, nope, you are off the job. Okay, we were taking you out of the job for the act of offense that you did. Number one. Number two, spoke back to all the other companies prior this person has worked previously and said, this person has, committed this crime. That's the word, crime. Okay. And therefore, no references should be given against this particular accused. And then the third thing that he did was, again, made this as a case, not mentioning the names or the faces, made this a case, and that company will have a zero tolerance policy, and any act of this sort of a nonsense. So that was sort of the very stringent measures which they did. And they also did set up the sexual harassment committee in their office, so which is something for another day perhaps that we can talk to. So I think it is absolutely important to see when we actually talk to these issues how we are able to address, and what decisive action it means. So drawing on this segue, and if I should take to my last slide and last thing for the day, I know we're all just coming close to lunchtime too. I'll wrap it up here. What am I saying besides all the takeaway points and the slides and everything? So what should we do? Number one, women's empowerment, please take it from me. It's not women's business alone. Okay, if you're thinking we'll have one day Monica, we'll have another lady, and third day another lady, so sorry. This is not only the women's thing, Women empowerment is actually our thing. We own this. I'm so impressed by your leadership, actually, the people who spoke before me, all the respected sirs, and also the leadership of each of you who are participating in this particular session. It is equally for both of us. It's for the men and women, because we have to go together. I keep telling my children, my boy and girl, guys, you're like this, you're my equals, okay? So there's nobody up and down and low and anything. We just got to be equals, and we have to do it together. And we have to do it with our men, and with our men in our family, with our men in our workplaces, with our men everywhere. So it has to be done together. And this is no women's only issue. That's one. What we have to do, how can we change the norms? How can we call out behaviors? If there is a bad behavior, please, we'll have to call it out. When we have to support each other, we have to amplify each other's voices. Oh, that is her thing. It has got nothing to do with me, pa. This is her problem. It is her issue. It is that thing I will not support. This is not me. No, that's not how we do it. We amplify and we support each other. And that comes with, because it's a moral obligation. And we also have, as a human being, a responsibility to stay connected and support each other. So that's solidarity that I'm talking about. Policies. Again, the example that I told you, the first example, and the others also. There was always been, when it goes to the helm, invariably there are men sitting at the helm. Men at that helm of the decision were able to take decisive actions where they were rolling out zero tolerance policies. So it is important people at the helm, it can be a male or a female, should be able to take. I have an open door policy in my organizational setup, that this sort of behavior will not be tolerated. It's absolutely no tolerance, okay? We will not tolerate this nonsense anymore. We'll have to be able to speak upon that. So policies are absolutely crucial. The third thing I wanted to talk to you about is also about innovative, positive solutions. I was talking to you about memes and how I like memes. It can be, if you're a student who is a media student or comms student, or who are creative, forget about the subject orientation, but if you're really creative, can you bring about positive content where you can talk to genders, talk against gender stereotypes and gender roles that has been assigned? And could we keep this as something, or even your fashion weeks or your annual celebrations, could we talk to some of those issues? Because I think what are we trying to do? We're trying to build a culture. Because it's just not like one solution. No, here's a problem solution. No, that's not it is, because the solution is systemic. The solution is the root of it. You can't just sort of brush it up on the top and say, oh yeah, it's all done, it's perfect, it's well done and well addressed. That's not this. The solution is deeply rooted. So unless you actually go down to the roots, big fan of Ayurveda myself. So I really don't go with allopathy, because I think allopathy is just only the top layer. It wouldn't go down to the roots. Likewise, can we go to addressing a solution to the roots? Because I think that's absolutely nodal, and that will give you the permanent cure, not this allopathy context. And finally, I even talked about engagement with media and other stakeholders, because I find media is absolutely crucial when it comes to your social media, when it comes to even your mainstream media. Sometimes I've stopped watching television. Great, I'm happy. I'm fine without television. So what is the media trying to promote? Where is our intersection? Because we're young people, young community. I think we really have to see how we can engage positively, or bring about transformative changes through our actions. And finally, silence is not an option. Just keeping questions, just going on. It's not my thing. I'm focused on there's nothing called as my issue, Audrey says that there is nothing called a single person issue. It is always a collective issue. You cannot say I am not engaged, and we cannot just wash it off and carry on as business as usual. I think I've come down to the last slide, and thank you very much. I have no chat. I will stop here, but I can take questions. So I'm just going to I'm just going to mute myself. Thank you for the opportunity. I hope you found it useful, and I look forward to answering your questions. Thank you.
Participants, you type your questions in the chat box. Some questions are there in the chat box. Shall I read it, ma'am? Monica, ma'am. Monica, ma'am. Please unmute your audio. Ma'am, unmute your audio, ma'am.
Questions. I'm just scrolling, but you can read it.
There's some questions are already there, ma'am.
Audio is unmuted. It's unmuted.
Is there any way to overcome male chauvinism? They've asked. Is there any way to overcome male chauvinism?
Okay. Okay, what do you mean by male chauvinism? I need to ask that question back to you. It all depends on where. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Okay, so what is your understanding of male chauvinism? That would be my follow-up question to you. Actually, if you can reply, because it is male chauvinism. The chauvinism is not male, you know. Chauvinism can also take different forms, and it can also sit under different people's heads, right? So it could be, it could manifest. It could manifest in the form of a male or the patriarchal values that we actually say. Patriarchy is a concept. Patriarchy is actually a concept. It is a theory. It has got manifestations, and it takes different in different situations it manifests in different ways. So I think it is not one individual you're targeting. I wouldn't target this one individual, meaning of course they could have expressed a behavior, or they could have expressed an attitude, or they could have expressed a value which is against another community, another group, in this case women. But then it is actually a system that you're targeting. So you can still be a woman. There can still be women who will be holding patriarchal values. They will still be male people holding patriarchal values. You can be in the global West, or you can be in the global East, or in the global South. It doesn't matter about your geographical location. That's what Mineke's book is talking about. This is a system that is in place. A system which says, this is superior, this is inferior. Okay, it's like this. Don't even connect. So that is means, and then they have a face to it. You know, the face can be a male, the face can be a boss, the face can be a religious leader, the face can be it can be your auntie next door. You know, so that you'll have to understand. So I think you will have to go back to the systemic issues, and that is important. Okay, let me look at the questions.
Sushila Chinnappa has one question. What do you think the society or the community should do for women empowerment?
Okay, what are you doing? Let's start with you. What are you? Forget, we'll come to the society in 3 seconds. What are you doing, ma'am, sir, for women empowerment? If you're at home, what are you trying to do? If you're at your within your friends group, what are you trying to do? In your college environment, what are you trying to do? If you're a mother, or if you're a father, what are you trying to do to your children? And it is not just, okay, I've gone to school, I've done this delivery, job done. Okay, done. I've published 5 papers, 2 books, job done. No, it doesn't. It's an ongoing process. It's a cyclic process, because this is a journey. That's what I said. The journey within today. So you have to keep doing it. What we can do, we have to go together in solidarity. I have great friends and champions in my workplace, and also in my home, in my family, who we journey together for collective objectives. So women empowerment is not one person Monica Vincent has spoken on women. Okay, next question. Women speak up against men.
What are the initiatives taken by the government for women entrepreneurs? Lalita Puvalingam has asked, what are the initiatives taken by the government for women entrepreneurs during COVID-19 period?
Okay, this is an interesting question. I can speak to Tamil Nadu, but I really don't know the facts about India. I'm not doing India anymore. Unfortunately, I'm doing largely international these days. I think the entrepreneurial skill sets in terms of finances, which has come down, which the state is rolling out in terms of plans and policies and giving them a little bit of waivers and a breathing space, it is happening. But what we don't know is actually how it is being implemented. But I do know for a fact that the Entrepreneurial Institute in Chennai, this is another, they used to roll out a lot of schemes, encourage people, encourage young entrepreneurs to come on board. So what we do know is what is there in the public domain. What we would really like to do, would you be interested to do that? Maybe a research study or at least do a sample as to what has been translated. Maybe five men who are small scale, medium scale, who are in different sectors to find out if they've got the bank waivers, if they've got the loans, if they've got, a little bit of things that we actually don't know how the COVID has impacted, or the COVID is, the situation created by the COVID has been facilitated well. I mean, that's something for a study to come out. So I really don't have figures on the top of my head, but of course, there is general understanding to and at least to cater to these communities who are worst hit.
Simran Bangera, she has asked a question. Most women don't support other women who are facing an issue and regard it as an individual problem. What do you think about it?
Applicable to anyone, Simran, and this is you say it's women, but it's also applicable to sometimes men. It's just like sort of ganging up. This is very important for women's solidarity. Of course, we as women will have to, the word amplify that I used. We have to stand together in solidarity and amplify. Not necessarily it's always we have to have women in the gang, in the group, but we should also have people who will be supportive and who will be aligned with us in terms of our values and principles, and the values and principles which will voice against these structural inequality issues. I think it is sort of a work in progress that I see. It is not pretty straightforward as we see it. Unfortunately, most of the mindset says in Tamil we say, it's not my thing. No, I'm doing my own stuff and going. Why should I even give my time and energy or even focus in this? That's sort of this dismissal attitude or sort of detached. It's got nothing to do with me. My house is not on fire. I'm actually fine under this one roof. So that attitude is there, which has to change because we'll have to do it collectively. And collectively, again, I will have to emphasize, we have to find out our allies. We have to find out who those people whom we can engage with. And also at some point in time, I think, Simran, we'll have to also engage with our allies. Because it is important, because some of who are not our allies are going in a Ferrari car. And we are still in our bicycle, no? We're still in our bicycle and trying to cycle from one place to another. I think it is important to see how we can engage collectively in solidarity. It need not be just allies, need not be just our own institutions. It can be even beyond institutions. There's a global solidarity, for example, on marginalized groups or groups who are like your colleges where are positioned, like these rural communities. When they come together, the same people don't come together. People who are marginalized in different sectors, people who are marginalized in different regions, people who are marginalized in different groups, they all try and come together. So I think it's a collective effort. And don't give up, because this is not going to be tomorrow morning. Everything is not going to be rosy. It will still be hard. And this is a journey, and you have to be a kick-ass in this. It has to be an absolutely kick-ass journey. That's one lesson I've learned myself. There is no room for frustration. If I'm really frustrated, this is actually what I do. Drink my tea, take a break, and I will come back. So you really have to take a break, and really you have to come back, because this has been ongoing. And sometimes I'm like, oh my God, how many times am I going to speak about women empowerment? I hope my daughter does it when she turns 20 or something. She's 8. I hope in 20 years time there will be some formidable change. So Simran, good luck.
Nishita Kanna has posted a question, ma'am. It is said that women are empowered those days, but somewhere we all know that women have to adjust and compromise in every field. What can be done about that?
Oh, that is a very tricky question. What's her name?
Nishita Kanna.
Rishita, listen, Rishita, listen. The thing about compromise, the thing about meeting people halfway, largely in marital relationships, or also even in your work environment. In any work environment, people, they usually say you'll have to choose your battles. No, you have to choose what battle are you going to fight, what battle you're going to let go. Let's compromise on this because there are bigger agendas. It is very important where, if it is a marital related question that you're asking me in your family space, in your private space, then it is important that you meet a person halfway. I mean, if it is not meeting halfway, it's not even worth it. That's my personal opinion. But if it is a work environment, this is like in a work environment, it is absolutely crucial to see what are your rights. Remember there was one father who referred to as, in terms of liberation, means self-respect, self-dignity, that we didn't touch upon much in this presentation. When it's something affects your self-respect and your self-dignity, I think that is absolutely nodal to anybody. How will you compromise on that? If somebody keeps on bullying you, if somebody keeps on tormenting you, okay, if somebody keeps on leveling abuses against you, okay, what is your breaking point, or what is your bandwidth, or what is your horizon to which you can tolerate it? I mean, in institutions or in your workplace, I mean, these are all practices which should not be tolerated in the first place. I mean, those institutions are even, I mean, you will have to gain support. I mean, there will have to be policies, there will have to be, institutional support and mechanisms which will alleviate, or which will address these issues actually. So I think you will have to think through, and I find it is having your own system, your backup system. It could be your friends. It could be what I now do is I talk to some of my mentors. Every month I call some of my mentors, people who are in different field, not necessarily lawyers, but also includes lawyers. And I speak to them and try and understand, like I reference with them how things could be addressed, what are those issues that we'll have to be looking at on personal level and also in terms of professional growth. I think this is something which we'll have to see. If it is an institution, then it is pretty straightforward. But if it's personal, I think it's really hard, but you'll have to make the choice. Then it is so many other, not just legalities, but so many other aspects will also come in. But I think it is something that you will have to put yourself first. How much of self-respect and dignity matters most to you, and if it matters, how far you're willing to take the conversation or that struggle on. So it is not going to be easy. It will be a struggle. But then again, the choice is entirely on you. But then I say, don't do it alone. Meaning, always have a support system with you. Talk to people. Vocalize it. Speak about it. Visibilize it. Make a visibility, and don't bottle it. Many cases that I find in courts, women come, they wouldn't have shared it to anybody. Parents wouldn't know. Relatives wouldn't know. Your work environment people wouldn't know. Your HR wouldn't know. Nobody knows. Keep it to themselves. I don't know what to gain. It is also related to the victim blaming. Because the minute the one IT company that I went to and I spoke to them about sexual harassment at work, okay, ladies and gentlemen, have you experienced sexual harassment at your workplace? Nobody was putting the hands up. Everybody was like, no, perfect. We're like, brilliant employer. And the HR comes and tells me, Monica, madam, lots of issues are here. Nobody wants to talk. They will only come and talk to HR. Then, okay, I went back and I said, see, you don't want to talk about this issue in front of 20 people. Why don't you want to talk about the issue in front of 20 people? Because you don't want that issue to come out for a tea time lecture or somebody talking, oh, you know what happened girl and that boy and all of that, you know. But I think it's important to break the silence. So in my slide, it will be the last thing, the last takeaway. What I've written is silence is not an option. I think you will have to speak about it, and it is going to be quite a bit of a roller coaster ride. But I think it is worth it.
Simran again asked the question, if women speak up against any wrongdoing, they are perceived as aggressive and men gang up collectively against them.
Okay, where are your women? I'm sure there will be some men who will not do that too. So I'm going to take the side of men here. Not all men are like that. In my experience, I've seen very supportive men also. I think you need to have men who will support you and who will, you know, bring you into your foray. But that's also, you should have also the women to speak up. I think it is everybody's shared responsibility. So rather than pitching each other against each other, no, Simran, unfortunately that's happening. It is important. My previous organizations, I was at the Commonwealth advising governments, and this boss used to tell me, she always got our back. Always got our back. Women, man, doesn't matter. You know, if she will always got our back for the fair and the right issues. I think it is absolutely crucial to get each other's back. So you were asking that Simran question was, Simran, if somebody else is in danger or somebody else is having an issue, where is your responsibility? I think it works mutual and it works collectively. I think it's important for you to identify that and work with those forces, because the force against us or the force against these issues are really very strong. How, you know, like the strategy, how people, that's what I use the example of Ferrari versus a cycle. If your force against you is a Ferrari car, okay, going at that speed, and if you're still cycling, where are you? How is your comparison? I think it's absolutely crucial to see how we can bridge that gap. How strategic will you be in addressing these issues? Yeah. So how, if you want to confront it, or if you want to take it up to the next level of leadership, or make a complaint about it, or if you want to just talk back and say, sorry, I'm not tolerating this. It can be any approach that you want to take, but then it's good to do it together as a collective.
Chandras and Kotwal has asked a question, what is the difference between Indian women and South African women regarding empowerment?
Oh, it's not much. I'm trying to look up the question. I don't get your name, but oh my God, I was in this, again, I have to refer back to this organization. So this Commonwealth, it is, the Commonwealth organization. So I was advising the member states, okay? So we used to go on missions, okay? I didn't get your name. I'm not able to address you. We used to go on missions to countries. So we'll go on assessment country missions. We will go on election missions. We'll go on various missions. And there was this one senior, very senior person at the level of this helm of leadership. And when we were talking in the plane and we were going, and then she used to tell me, Monica, it's so hapari. I've just finished this. I finished lunch for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Put it in dabbas and put it inside the freezer and put the sticker outside on it. Monday food, Tuesday food, Wednesday food, Thursday food, Friday food. So this is household chores, huh? A person, for me, I was like, that was a eye opener, honestly, for me. A person with that level, helm of leadership, and she's just talking to presidents and prime ministers, heads of states, still have to do the food, label the food, leave it in the freezer, and serve. So this is just a classic example that I want to give you. Irrespective of the region that you want to take, you're just asking, you're referencing South Africa. I can't see your question up, but it doesn't matter any region. It can take the global West, the global South. You compare any region. The issues are similar. The variance is actually in terms of the intensity and also in terms of the progress that's been made. That is just the only difference. But otherwise, I find it's absolutely it's still, we need more to do. It's a global issue. That's what I say. Violence against women is a global pandemic. Forget about the COVID-19. Yeah, COVID-19, yes and no. It's just doing ups and downs. But there are global pandemics that we are not recognizing much. No.
Lalit Moga, only men held responsible for violence against women. But I think most of the cases, women also.
I'm trying to understand the question here. Yeah, I agree with you, Lalit. I think if your question is to say that women could also be perpetrators, then yes, of course, I'll agree with you because it is always a mixed bag. But again, Lalit, I want to bring to your attention that it is in terms of again how many women in terms of the victims ratio or in terms of the precedences that we see in terms of the power positions or how the power. Remember the intersectionality slide that I showed you when power and privilege combines and when the intersectionality of identity identity comes to meet each other, then you'll have to see what is the levels, what is the percentage, and who are the people who are overly discriminated or overly targeted. In that case, then it will absolutely be women. I mean, this is just not an India or a South Asian issue. I mean, this is global. I do agree with you, but men are also being affected. Men are also targeted. But I think in terms of violence, it is a mixed bag. Largely it is women from our own homes, Lalit. Forget about the global scenario. Take a second in our own homes. All our Ammi Jans and all our even daughters and everybody. You can just do that thing by yourselves. Let not even step out. And therefore the need and therefore the impetus to keep working on this. Because this cannot be right. We're all equal. In what way are we different? In what way? Of course, the physical characteristics are obviously different. Besides that, what way are we trying? What way are we trying? What is being told to us in terms of our scriptures, in terms of our textbooks, our literatures, in terms of our readings, in terms of whatever methodologies that we do? What is it enforcing on us? It cannot be also fair, no? One people always be superior, another be actually ducked down all the time. That is actually not a fair logic in any way. So I think it is important to see and also what to prioritize, no? If it is because of the power dynamics and privilege, certain groups, in that case men or women, or as a caste or a high caste or a low caste, or in terms of religious groups, majorities or minorities, it's always this classifications that, or it can be in sexuality when it comes to, which is people who belongs to the LGBTI communities. It is always this one sector always being targeted and taken out for a ride. That is definitely not suitable or acceptable in any fair society, fair and open society. Are we a fair and open society? I mean, our cultures are very rich. We have very rich traditions in India. In terms of our diet, in terms of our religious, in terms of our scriptures and practice, it's extremely rich and very dense in history. But I think we need to understand how it manifests, and if there is such sort of discrimination and inequality that manifests, I think any given day that cannot be tolerated and that cannot be accepted. So yeah.
Final question, ma'am. Dr. L. Arakiraj, HOD of Rural Development Science, Arlanadar College, has posted a question. COVID-19 increased violence against men. What's your opinion?
I think I should let him answer that question. I would be interested to know in what is his rationale and what is his thinking. I'm not brushing anything aside, but yeah, thank you, Lalit. I've seen your response. I really don't know. I mean, that's not what the statistics is portraying. But if you should have statistics, I think you should speak to it, Doctor. I forgot your name, Dr. Arakiraj. Yeah, I think you should speak to it. But again, we're only talking to the degrees, but that would be an interesting dimension as well to look at. I'm not brushing it aside. I'm welcoming it, but then we'll have to see in terms of the degrees of comparison where it actually stands. Who are the men you're talking about? That's another point I'll ask you. What intersectional are you speaking to? That is, something I will ask you, because you cannot say men. I wouldn't agree to men. That I will disagree. Are you talking about every man? I don't think so. We'll have to see who you're referring to. I mean, that would be interesting to see. It could be well the case, but I look forward to it. Yeah? Thank you so much, Chitra ma'am. We are done here.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thanks so much, ma'am. Actually.
Now I call upon Dr. Karthikeyan, Assistant Professor of BBA, Arthanagar College of Arts and Science, to deliver vote of thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, audible? I'm audible, ma'am. Hello, I'm audible, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's a great pleasure for me to propose It's a great pleasure for me to propose a vote of thanks to this international webinar on women empowerment. First, I would like to place my sincere thanks to our chairman, through S. Balasubramania Adityan, Dr. S. Jayakumar, Secretary, and Dr. S. Magendran, Principal of Adityanath College of Arts and Science. Also, I would like to thank Dr. C.V. Maithili, Principal, Rani Anna Government College, Reverend Dr. Godwin Rufus, Principal, Arlanandar College, and Dr. A. Deepa, Coordinator, NAC of Rani Anna Government College, for an able support for the grand success of this webinar. My sincere thanks to the internationally renowned keynote speaker of this webinar, Lawyer Monica Vincent, Policy Advisor, Amnesty International, for an excellent speech and wide coverage on women empowerment. I would like to thank the convener, Dr. A. Antony Sagai Chitra, Head BB of Adityanath College of Arts and Science, for continuously organizing such programs. I would like to thank the organizing secretary, Father Jay Seelan, Assistant Professor of Rural Development Science, Arlanandar College, for his tiresome work. Also, I would like to thank Dr. Arokya Raj, HOD Rural Development Science of Arlanandar College. I would like to thank Father Justin Prabhu, Assistant Professor Visual Communication, Loyola College, Chennai, for referring the chief guest. I would like to thank our department staff members, Mr. Dharma Perumal, Mr. T. Selvakumar, for their able support. Also, our technical team needs a great patting for organizing this webinar across the globe. I would like to thank the faculty members and students of Adityanath College, Rani Anna Government College, Arlanandar College, for active participation. I would like to thank the YouTube viewers across the globe. Thanks for all who made this international webinar a grand success. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your vote of thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the Jai Seelan. Thank you, Monica, ma'am. It was very good.
Thank you, ma'am. Monica, ma'am, thank you so much. Very good talk.
Monica, ma'am.
Very inspiring, very informative, very challenging, very good talk.
Monica, ma'am, people are asking for your. Monica, ma'am, participants are asking about your contact details. Okay. Father Jason and Vassal. You with the medical. Monica, ma'am. Okay, clear. Father Jason, எப்படி இருந்துச்சு program?
Father, thank
It
you so
was
much.
good, very informative.
Thank you so much, Father.